Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 6 o'clock here in the morning, Monday morning, September 27th, and I'm happy to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, and we're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. Chat room is open if anybody would like to sit in there, and I popped a link in there. Still looking at a website called Anger Resources at www.angerresources.com, and that's ANGEROURCES, so just one R in there. And it's a great website, and I'm learning a lot from it. We looked at this all last week, and the shame-rage connection, and so that's what I want to continue looking at, and just the whole what is anger. They have on that website they have a little test called a pre-test you can take to see if you what your answers or my answers would be on there in regards to how much we know about anger. And then they give you the answers, right? So it's quite interesting. So we'll probably get into that this morning. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I appreciate it. And, I'm not a professional counselor or therapist. I always say this on every show. It's just very important that people know I'm just a private citizen paying to do my shows. I'm just looking for information all the time. I'm a survivor of child abuse, and I'm always looking and searching for, what's going to help me in my healing journey, right, as I deal with and sort of take a look at my past behaviors as well as behaviors right now that I'm still doing and things in my life that I'm sort of looking at how I can help to sort of change these things for the better, right? And so it's very helpful for me. I hope it's helping somebody else out there as well. And as I find this stuff, I thought, well, I'll just talk about it on my show, and so that's what I'm doing. I'm not a professional counselor or therapist. You have to listen at your own discretion. All of my topics on all of my shows are about abuse. So abuse is a very sensitive subject, and you have to be aware of what you're comfortable of listening to. So if you feel that this show or any of my shows would make you uncomfortable, please don't listen and just turn them off. You have to listen at your own discretion. And if you're a young person under the age of 18, I just ask that you have permission to listen to my shows, because I'm all about protecting children. I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and that's what we do. We're all volunteers, and we are working overtime, to try to get the word out, awareness, education, prevention of child abuse to help protect children, right? So if you're a young person under the age of 18, I just ask that you have someone listen to the show with you who's older, an adult or, parent, caregiver, teacher, counselor at school, someone who can listen to the show with you to make sure it's something you should be listening to, and then they can help you if you have questions, right? It's so important to keep yourself safe when you're online, and you have to know how to keep yourself safe online, right? So be sure and get the information, right, on how to stay safe. So we'll get right into this article here, and this is called The Shame-Rage Connection, From Feeling Defective and Inadequate to Becoming Disrespectful and Explosive. It was put out by Dave Decker, and he's I was talking about him a little bit. I looked to see who these people were who put this website together. It's Dave Decker and Mike Obsatz put this website together. And Dave Decker is a licensed psychologist, and he's currently practicing in private practice in St. Paul, Minnesota. And he provides domestic abuse and general mental health services for his clients, right? So Michael Obsatz, Obsatz, received an honorary degree from Macalester College. And he was teaching at the college for 40 years. His courses included Institution of the Family, Human Sexuality, Male Socialization Issues and Violence, and Death and Dying. And he earned his BA in Psychology from Brandeis University in Waltham, Massachusetts, and a PhD in Educational Psychology from the University of Chicago. So these two gentlemen have put this website together, and it's all about how to manage and handle anger, for people who have anger issues. And a lot of abuse stems from anger management problems. I mean, there's a lot of parents out there who really have a lot of anger management problems, and that's why there's a lot of domestic violence and abuse and child abuse, because people cannot control themselves. They get and I know I've personally known so many people in my lifetime, especially when I was growing up, who had so many problems with anger management. My parents were the first biggest culprits, and then a lot of my friends, because of the type of homes that they were growing up, they had a lot of anger management problems. Myself, I had a lot of anger management problems. I would do really crazy things to get back at people. and if I was mad, and I would go to the extreme. Or I would just lash out violently at them, like at work, or this is when I was a young person, like under 20 years old. And I got to be, 22, 23, and I started to try to learn how to behave myself properly and how to control my anger issues, right? And I did pretty good because, over the years I learned how to behave. But what I did was I just stuffed all that anger and rage that I had in me from being abused as a child. I just stuffed it way down inside of me. So I was really good to everybody else around me. And then it would just be stifled in me, and so it was killing me because this anger and rage wasn't going anywhere because I wasn't handling anything. I wasn't looking at my own survivor issues. I was just always thinking, oh, I'm doing good, I'm getting through it. In the meantime, I had a whole lot of rage and anger that had been boiling and boiling within me for a long, long time, which would cause me to want to self-injure, and it would also cause me to want to end my life because I certainly didn't want to hurt anybody else. So that's the whole issue. I was just hurting myself, and that's what can happen, to some people if they don't deal and handle their anger issues, or they'll just keep lashing out at other people, which I did not want to do because I grew up abused, and I knew how hard it is on people when people are abusive to another person that they love, and so I just went the other way and was trying to be good to everybody around me, and yet was not being good to myself, right? And so I wanted to take a look at this anger resources thing. I know so many people who have been in this situation and had real problems dealing with anger. So, and anger is a normal part of life. We are going to get angry, and there's ways to handle it. There's ways that we can properly diffuse it and properly use it to be proactive in our lives, and I believe that. I totally do, because we are going to get angry. There are going to be situations that anger is going to come about, right? It's a natural response. But the thing is how we handle it will decide whether we're going to abuse somebody, whether we're going to abuse ourselves, how we're going to handle a situation, And I just think that there's just so many better ways to deal with things than abusing people. And that's what I'm doing, is talking about abuse, right? So that's what we're talking about here today. And I wanted to look, like Friday, we were looking at the one section that is the Shame Rage Connection section, which we got pretty much almost all the way through it. But we were looking at the different roles that we're forced to play, right? Like Dave Decker says, that as children, people create, our parents and other people in our lives have created this script for us, this life script, and we were expected to play it out. And they created it for us, so it's not like it's something that we could have done to stop it, right? He's talking a lot about abuse here, and I hope you will go back and check it out, www.angerresources.com, ANGERESOURCES.com, because this is such good information for people who have been abused, right, whether it's domestic violence, just any situation, right, child abuse or whatnot. And I like what he said here. It's like people created a life script for us, and we were expected to play it out, play the part all the way through life without, with a no escape clause. He said here in this article, and then we just learned how to do it, even though the abusers might not even be in our life anymore. As adults, we're still playing the part. And I think that's so interesting because, even though the abusers in my life my dad is still living, but we're not close, and, he lives in a senior's lodge here, but he stayed with me for a year and almost drove me crazy. But he's 87 years old, and he's very mentally ill. So he's in a senior's lodge right now having a great time, which makes me happy because I don't have to worry about him. But the thing is my mom's been passed away, and she was my main abuser. So she's passed away 16 years ago, and 15 years ago. And, so there's no one around me really right now who's abusive in my life, really, because I don't allow it. Thank God. I wised up to the fact that I will not hang around with people who are abusive or, who are going to be abusive to me. But the thing is all this stuff from my past is still running my life. And that's why, it's so important to know that we don't have to continue to live that life script. We can get our own life script, and that's what he's talking about here in this next section. But on Friday we were looking at the different examples of life scripts that angry people play out in their lives. And it says you may recognize yourself in these, or you might see others in these. Even if they don't seem to fit, think about the script that you may be playing and try to identify. very specifically how it has affected your life. So we went over these on Friday, and that was the good little girls and boys who, and the rebels, the super achievers, right? And he talked about all that stuff there. It's really quite interesting to see, and I recognize parts of myself in almost all of it. There's the clowns, the losers, the victims, the saviors, the martyrs, super achievers, rebels, good little girls and good boys, girls and boys. So I could see parts of myself actually in all of that. Excuse me, my voice is terrible this morning. And it's quite interesting to go through and look at those. You can go back and look at those, but we did check that out. And, when you're abused, somebody's written your life script for you. You almost can't help but taking on a role like that, right? And it says it is critical to realize that the original shaming you experienced was not your fault and that you did not deserve to be shamed. It says you were not responsible as a child for the shaming script that others wrote for you. As all children do, you believe that you were told by your parents, teachers, peers, and the other directors in your life. You believed what they told you, right? It says this is especially true when the shamers were the people who you were supposed to be able to count on. Your vulnerability and fear kept you captive in a shame-based drama. So that's just it. When we're children, we don't have a choice, right? No, we really don't. But as adults, we do, right? And that's the whole issue. It says, but in the present, you are the one who is responsible to change your life script. No one else can do it for you. Your shame is your responsibility as an adult, because as a child, it couldn't be. But as an adult, we have the choice to change that, right? And it says, and the disrespectful anger toward yourself or others that flows out of the shame is your responsibility as well. So this is just it. This whole cycle of abuse, right? Parents, like for instance, this just fits my parents completely, right? They were not treated well as children. My mom was flat out abused as a child. I don't know so much about my dad's story, but I know that his family was dysfunctional, and they were mentally ill. So I'm sure there was some issues there, right? Because he has no boundary issues. He has no ability to have empathy. He doesn't have empathy for anybody, right? He just cares about himself, and that's very true. But the thing is, who knows exactly how he grew up. This was back in 1923 when he was born, and there isn't a whole lot of talk going on in his family about what happened, except for that my dad's dad, my grandfather, moved out and left my grandmother to raise 10 children on her own and in poverty, and so in the Depression era, right? So, and he moved to the mountains because he supposedly wanted to become a pianist, and he felt that the family was holding him back. So he took the piano to the wood log cabin out in the middle of nowhere and sat there and played piano. But I almost don't believe that, because there was another story going around that he had TB and that he had to stay away from the family. But see, you just never know, because there's a lot of weirdness in my family, so who knows what's going on there. But I think that, there was some abuse there in his family as well. There's mental illness, all kinds of stuff wrong in that family. And they don't talk a whole lot about their past except for good stuff. They never talk about anything bad, but I know there was some weird stuff going on because too many people in the county, in the area, knew that their family was a little strange. So I don't know if there was incest going on. I think there might have been. So the whole issue is that there's my dad. Then my mom. My mom was abused physically and verbally, emotionally, psychologically by her mother, who abused all of her children, right, and killed one of her sons, right, my uncle. And so I come from this very dysfunctional, abusive environment, and they grew up in it. They continued to cycle on because they never got any help, right? Not realizing that this garbage that they put on us was not. They should have gotten help for their issues instead of passing the cycle on to us, right? And so this is our responsibility. We cannot pass the cycle on. We need to stop the cycle of child abuse, right? So we have to do this ourselves. In order to do that, we have to take responsibility for our actions, which my parents would never do. They would never take responsibility for their abusive, ways. It was always somebody else. It was always somebody else's fault. It was always not their fault, right? And pretty sad and pathetic that they would never take responsibility, and that's what bothered me about it. My mom would never admit how bad she was. She would never say she was sorry. She would never, because she wasn't sorry. That's the whole issue. My mom was my main abuser, very physically abusive, verbally abusive, emotionally, psychologically abusive, and would never say she was sorry. So I look back at all the beatings and all the verbal abuse and emotional garbage I took from her, And I think she would never, ever say she was sorry and hold me and console me and, no, nothing. I mean, she did not care. So, all that stuff just stayed with me. Now, I have the choice to either let that kill me or I have the choice to move on and heal. I also have the choice to not pass the cycle on. I have the choice to not abuse other people just because I was abused, right? This is what it's all about. This is what it comes down to in adult survivors' lives, right? We have the choice to heal. We have the choice to make these right choices for ourselves. We're no longer underneath the thumb of a parental abuser or caregiver. Now, if you're still in a domestic violence situation, then you want to get out. And you want to get yourself some help, right? Do not continue to suffer on in that. You don't deserve it. You certainly, it's not your life sentence, right? But so many times people think that this is all that's theirs and it actually belongs to them, and it doesn't. Abuse is a choice, and people choose to abuse, and if we choose to stay in an abusive relationship, that is our choice. And it's a little bit hard to feel sorry for somebody who continually stays in an abusive relationship and won't get themselves any help. My mom was I'm talking about my mom here too, because my mom should have gotten out, and there was so many times my mom could have got out. And even my older brothers would always tell my mom to get out. They'd be like, "Mom, you should move out, move away, get out. Even if you don't take the kids, get yourself out. We'll just have to deal with it. But, you move out, get your life together, right?" And my mom wouldn't do it. So, the whole dysfunction and abuse and domestic violence and abuse continued on. And, felt later on it was really hard for me to be sympathetic or empathetic towards her because she was staying and she could have got out. And she could have got us out. She could have got us out and got us some help. Instead of that, she chose to stay in this very, very physically, verbally, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, sexually abusing environment. And she kept us there too. So, see, I don't, I can't really have too much empathy or sympathy for her. I mean, I did feel bad for her when I was a child. But now, as an adult, I don't. Because I know she did that on her own choice. And she also abused me on her own accord. She did that that was her choice to do that. So, but then again, do I need to let this anger and shame and rage destroy me? Absolutely not. Because it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the abusers, right? I finally figured it out. It took me 40-something years, 30 cognitive years, or more than 30, 35 cognitive years to figure it out. 37 cognitive years, let's say, almost 40 years to figure this out. I would hope that other people wouldn't take that long to figure this stuff out. You know what I mean? It's like, my God, it's not a life sentence. You know what I mean? And we think it is. We think, oh, God, I'll never be able to heal from this. I'll never, and it's not true. Do we ever forget? I don't know. I don't think I'll ever forget what happened to me as a child, and I think I don't want to forget what happened to me as a child because I want to help other people and I want to stop child abuse, right? So that's what I'm doing, working with Dream Catchers for Abused Children. But do I have to let it destroy my life? Absolutely not. And this is where what I'm saying is I finally came to the realization that this does not have to destroy my life. I can have a good life. There's no reason why I'm not just as able, just as able-minded, able-bodied to have a good and decent life, even though I have, there's a lot of scarring. There's a lot of emotional scars. There's a lot of, scars are scars. Scars are just there. It's not like you can just erase a scar, So whether it's a physical scar or an emotional scar, they're there. But I can learn how to live with it. I can learn how to look past those and find the joy in this life and find the peace in my heart and find goodness in this world, and make it worthwhile, right? And so that is totally our choice. We can either just choose to let this abuse destroy us, or which like I talk about it pretty much on every show because it's just so important. When I began my healing journey is when I was sitting on the couch getting ready to self-injure, and I was so angry and so hurt, and that was about 3.5 years ago. And I was kind of contemplating suicide again. I thought of so many ways, right? And it's just like 3.5 years ago, I said, that's it. No more. I'm fighting to stay alive. I'm going to fight to live and have a good life. And I really made a deal really with myself is what I did. I say sometimes I made a deal with God, but God doesn't make deals. So, I made a deal with myself that I would do this for myself because I deserved it. I started to recognize that I deserved to have a good life, and that I was not, that shame and all that abuse really had nothing to do with me. It was not my fault. So I had to stop taking responsibility for something I had no fault for, wasn't my fault. So it's not your fault. And, learn how to love myself and allow myself to love myself. That was the whole issue. It's like, I almost had made it this thing where I didn't want to love myself. I didn't want to love that angry, wounded child who was always crying and miserable, that inner child, angry and raging she was, And I finally gave myself permission to go ahead and just, hey, you know what? I do love myself. I don't care how corny that sounds, man. I do love my inner wounded self, that ugly child that was beaten and abused and mistreated and sexually used and, kicked around and bombarded with the most ugliest names and cursings to hell a person can possibly be bombarded with, which I know so many people have survived this and worse. And, I had to learn how to love her. And how to say, you know what, it's okay. That was not yours. All that stuff on that necklace that your parents put around your neck and my neck, that abuse and garbage did not belong to us, and we can throw it away. It doesn't belong to me. I can't give it back to them because they won't accept it. They won't accept what they did. But what I can do is throw it away. And so I did. I threw it away. I just threw that necklace on the floor and I walked off. And this is, an imaginary necklace that I could feel that was around my neck with abuse and garbage and every kind of horror, was on that necklace hanging around my neck all the time. And I thought that necklace belonged to me. And then I'm like, oh my God, that thing doesn't even belong to me and I'm carrying it around. I just threw it away. And I thought, I can start again. I don't have to wear that necklace. I did not deserve that abuse. And I don't care who doesn't like it. I'm moving on in my healing journey. If that means, a split and a rift between my dysfunctional family and myself now, then that's what it means. And so that's exactly what happened. And, sometimes that happens. And I'm glad that it happened because I don't need to stay around dysfunctional, abusive people who will not admit the truth. You know what I mean? And who won't do anything to try to move forward in this healing journey I'm on. See, so I'm on a completely different plane than the remaining members of my family, which there aren't too many left. But I had to do this to save my life. And many of them would not understand that. Because they are so dysfunctional and so screwed up in the head that they would not see that if I did not go public with my story and did not write my story out as a blog and did not sit there and make a deal with myself 3 years ago that I was going to fight to live, that I would probably have killed myself. I would have probably done myself in or self-injured and continued on this path to destruction, which is what my parents had started me on, before I was born. So that's the whole issue. They're maintaining in their little world of denial. So that's fine, but I can't be part of it, right? And they can't be part of my acceptance. They can't be part of my speaking out, right? And so it did cause a huge wedge between me and my dysfunctional family members, which is there's only 3 left. And do I care? Absolutely not. Because I care about myself, not them. And the whole issue is that sounds pretty cold, but you know what? I'm so tired of caring about my family and not myself that I've actually had to flip it around the other way. I do care about them. I don't want to see anything bad happen to them. But do I care that they're hanging around me or approving of what I'm doing? Absolutely not. Basically, that's what I mean by that, right? They don't approve what I'm doing. My brother has stated to my dad that he hates what I'm doing. My sister is hiding, like as usual. And my dad is really the only one who's talking to me right now, and he's one of my main abusers. But he sort of seems to understand what I'm doing in his own way. So it's quite interesting. But my siblings are just not able to handle it, and other family members as well. And I'm like, you know what? That's okay. I don't care. Move on with your life. I had to move on with mine in order to save it. So see, they don't quite get that. They would have to go see a counselor in order to understand what had to happen with me, because they are dysfunctional. And they're not facing what's going on in their own minds, in their own lives, right, and in their own hearts, right. So that's the thing. We are responsible for what we do, And so if you want to, you have to realize that this abuse does not have to destroy you. It doesn't have to destroy me. And I have the choice to not let the anger and the rage and the shame run my life. I can take control of it, and I can learn how to love myself and how to self-nurture and how to move through this life and have a good life without hurting other people or myself, right? So it says, begin to imagine and write a new story. It says, through your current thoughts, words, attitudes, and actions about who you really are inside and who you actually want to be. Your disrespectful anger in the present only creates more shame for you and others. It says, take the necessary steps to change how you experience and express your anger, even if that means attending an anger class or getting some professional help from a therapist experienced in working with anger issues. So we can write a new story with our current thoughts, our words, attitudes, and actions. We can write a new script for ourselves, right? And we can take a look at who we really are inside and who we want to be. We don't have to be that abused, wounded, mistreated person who's suffering, even however long after the abuse, right? We can change that and learn how to love that person, and learn how to nurture that wounded person within us, and then create a new story for ourselves and a new script, which is what I've been doing, and I'm so happy, man. Let me tell you, I'm so happy that I made the deal to stay alive and to fight to live, because it gave me, it changed my whole life. You know what I mean? And it changed the way I feel about things, and I no longer, go to bed at night thinking, that this life just sucks and that it's just horrible. Now, I still have sadness in my life. I have sadness because I have grief for my lost childhood, right? I'm still grieving, and I haven't really quite worked through the grieving process, but, I'll do that. I'm not quite sure how to quite go about it. I need to actually go do some grieving work. But I will do that eventually. But so, there is a little bit of sadness surrounding me, and I think that anybody who really knew me would be able to pick it up. Most people wouldn't. I get through life pretty good. I go to work and I do my thing, and I laugh and have a good time. But then again, in the background, there's a little something always kind of there. And I think now, instead of anger and rage, it's just a grieving process that I'm kind of trying to go through. And it's okay. There's things that we'll just have to work out. And just at our own pace, at our own speed, and getting help, whichever way that is, right? If you need to see a counselor or a therapist, I see nothing wrong with that. And like group support and online group support, that's what I like. I like online group support because it's convenient, mainly. And also, there's so many survivors on there who have been through the same things, and they're going through the same things. And it's very handy to late at night, you're sitting around and you're bummed out and depressed, you can pop online and go to the online adult survivors of child abuse groups, and you can remain anonymous, first of all, which is really cool for a lot of people who don't want to come forward with their name. And you can type in there, I'm just having issues with flashbacks or whatever. And people are so supportive. They really are, because they're on their healing journey too. And, they want you to heal as well as them, right? So they're like, hey, we can do this, It's so good to have some validation and some support. And so, whatever way it is that you have to get some help, make sure you get some help, right? Like he suggested here, Dave Decker, getting a therapist or working through anger issues in an anger class. And so we'll finish this portion of it up. We pretty much did, but it'll take about 5 minutes for tomorrow morning, and then we'll move on to the anger questions. How much do we know about anger, right? And what the answers are, because he's got the questions and answers. You can go check that out, www.angerresources.com. And I'll be back on tomorrow morning, same time. I'll be on tonight, too, as well as on my show, as well as Dreamcatchers Talk Radio, www.blogtalkradio.com/Dreamcatchers. And tonight, Elizabeth Brawley and myself will be talking about listener's choice. And we had a listener who actually suggested the topic of emotional and verbal abuse. And so that's what we're going to cover tonight. And we're going to just devote the whole show to listener's choice, topic of emotional and verbal child abuse, and the signs and symptoms and the effects and long-term effects. And both of us are survivors, so coming at you from a survivor's point of view. So everybody have a great day. Make sure you keep reaching out. Do not ever give up. You do count. You do matter. And so you deserve a good life, right? So you hang in there, and you make sure that you get some help, and you make a phone call. If you have to call a crisis line, then you call a crisis line, because those people are like you and me. A lot of them are survivors, and they just want to help people out, right? So you do what you have to do to stay alive and to stay well, right? And to stay here with us, okay? So have a great day, everybody. I'll keep you in my heart till next time, and talk to you later tonight. Bye-bye.